Hey everybody. Just before we get started on our show, just wanted to let everybody know that we will not be having a Christmas episode. We're going to take that week off and enjoy some time with our family, and we hope you do the same. We had a lot of fun recording this episode, and we hope you enjoy.
Where three of the Okayest Youth Ministers talk about youth ministry. I'm Michael Deese, and I'm joined by Jeremy Crow and Hunter Puckett.
Glad to be here. Oh.
Let me fix the mics there.
Run it back.
Let's go.
We're glad to be here. Excited.
Yeah. Jeremy, you excited?
You know,
Now that your mic's turned on?
I am excited. I am excited. I'm looking forward to talking with you guys about our topic on this episode.
Oh, being vague. Hey, well, the good news is that we're all very, very big. We're experts in this area, right?
That's true.
Yeah, we're experts. We know exactly what to do here because we all have jobs. So
That's true.
Obviously, we did something right. I mean, today we are talking about
How to get a job.
how to get a job.
How to get a job.
What do you do to
in
get a
youth
job?
ministry specifically? We don't know about other areas to get a job, but we do know about youth ministry.
Yeah.
So,
And so tell me, what was your best interview experience that you had? Your best, and for a youth ministry job, your best interview experience.
I was at Freed Hardman, and it was my freshman year, that February.
Oh, wait.
Way back.
way
yeah,
back
We gotta
machine.
we gotta do
You don't
that.
even know what
All right,
button
here
it
we go.
is.
Oh, wait.
There we go. It was February, my freshman year, right as lectureship is starting, and K-Pac over at Freed Hardman, she sent out an email and said, hey, there are people coming to interview potential youth interns. And I was like, okay, that'd be really cool. So I went to two of them. The first one, I'm not going to say the name of the church. The first one drilled me with questions. It was the preacher and one of the elders, and they had a coat and tie on. They looked very professional, and it was a really good interview. I thought it went well, but it just wasn't me. And then the next interview, I walked in, and it's Chris Presnell and Big Red, also known as Michael James. I guess that's his government name, but Big Red.
Government name.
And Big Red had on, and Chris says he didn't. I remember shorts and a t-shirt. He
That
said he made him.
sounds
He said he
100%
made
true.
him put on like a polo or something, and then Chris was wearing like some
doubt
slacks and a collared shirt.
Yeah.
And in that interview, I walked in. I was like, okay, these guys are more my speed. And then they asked me one question, and it was, "Can I play slow pitch softball?" And at the time, my intramural team had just won slow pitch softball, so I was like, "Yeah, I play it pretty good."
And
they're like, "All right, well, when do you want to come and interview?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, "Yeah, when you want to like come to Flint and like talk to the kids and stuff." I was like, just whenever y'all want me to. So it was definitely a interesting conversation to go from one side to the other.
Yeah.
Little known fact about Hunter: at one time, one of the fastest gunslingers in Georgia.
That's true. Very much.
Got an arm like a cannon.
A long time ago, but
It had. But let's be real. Had he not got injured, he'd probably be playing in the MLB.
no, that's still a stretch.
No.
He might be a water boy at least.
Yeah. No, but
right.
it was really cool. And then I interned there, and then I had my end of summer goodbye party, and then I showed up the next summer, and then I had my end of summer goodbye party, and then I showed up the next summer, and then I got hired on full time. So it's been great.
Awesome.
That's cool. I actually also interviewed with Chris Presnell at the Flint congregation.
Hey, I'm calling him out.
when I was a freshman, and had a great interview. Thought it went really well. Really connected well. Thought we were, this was actually before Big Red worked there as an intern. I would have been that summer. And so I didn't get the job there, and I ended up taking a job at Hebron, and I ended up working there for an entire summer, and it went great. And I ended up working there a long time after that. But I saw Chris at an area-wide summer activity, TNT, Thursday nights together. And
We need to bring those back.
and he said, hey man, what happened? Why didn't you ever call me? I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, I called to offer you the job at Flint to work as an intern, and he said your roommate said he's going to have you call me back. Never heard that.
Shout out to Jared Gott. Jared Gott.
Jared was my roommate my freshman year at Freed Hardeman, and Jared never informed me that Chris called. I absolutely might have been working at Flint. Might be in a Hunter's shoes right now working with Chris Steele at this time, but
Shout out Jared.
Thanks,
I appreciate
Jared.
that.
so if you happen to listen, thank you.
And Jared Gott is also a youth minister, which probably
He was probably wanting the job.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Oh, that's good. Well, I had a really pleasant interview experience one time, and I'll just tell you, it was the job that I'm at right now, and they just said, "Hey, we just want to get to know who you are. We want to know a little bit about your family, about your situation, who you are, and all that stuff." And they said, "We've got really just 4 or 5 questions that we want to ask you, and we want you to know these questions are. There's very few things that you can say that are going to make us say, nope, this isn't the guy." Okay? They said, "We want you to be honest with us. We don't want you to lie and say what you think we want to hear. We want you to be honest with us, and we want you to answer these questions truthfully." And they said, again, unless you say Jesus isn't the Son of God, then you're probably not going to be just cut out of our search committee thing. And so they asked me those questions. I answered them honestly, and they said, basically, that's exactly how we feel about these subjects, and that's what we want you to teach our kids. And it was just such a breath of fresh air to have them say what they said, and me be able to just say, here's what I'm doing, here's my and know that there's no under the surface things going on. It was just, here's what we believe, here's what I believe. We line up, and things are going to go really well.
Well, I think that means a lot coming from those churches, because I joke about that, and that's the one question they asked me. And you had a couple come into Hartzell, but it's so they know that you'll get along with the kids and be interacting with the kids, because that summer we had a lot of athletic kids in that youth group, and they knew that if someone was coming in to be that intern, they needed to be able to play the sports with them.
Yeah.
And if they weren't into sports or they weren't athletic, then they weren't going to mesh well with the rest of the kids. So I look at it as they just wanted me to play softball with them, but it was actually, can you hang out with the kids? Or you can be able to play sports with them and be able to have conversations with them.
Right.
And so that question does go a long way.
Yeah. And I ask those kind of questions now as when I'm hiring interns.
Mm-hmm.
We talked. We're going to have an intern episode, but that's one of the things we talk about with interns is that kind of idea. How are they going to get along with the kids? So you always go into these interview situations, and you have these questions that you have for yourself, okay? So that's how we'll start off this conversation. What are you looking for when you begin your search to find a new job, okay? Whether let's say, you're just graduating college and you're looking for a job, what are the things that you're looking for in a church? Then the other one is let's say that you're something, you're not feeling effective where you're at, or things just aren't flowing the way that you think they should where you're at, and you're kind of looking for a new place to go to. What are some of the things that you're looking for when you begin your search?
You have to say, the real estate old adage is location, location, location. You obviously are looking for, where is this place located in the country? Where is this in an area that I want to be? Is it close to family? That kind of thing. I will say this, and this is no offense to all the places that I've worked previously or currently, but my wife has sent me job listings every time I'm working somewhere that trying to get me to move. Not because she hates where we're at, but every time a job opens in a beach town, she sends me Fort Walton Beach Church of Christ, Destin Church of Christ, Gulf Shore Church of Christ. Every time there's a beach job, Jessica sends me the listing. It's what do you think? You think we should look at this?
I think we should go to the beach.
But yeah, you look for location. If you want to be somewhere that's specific in the country, or maybe all of your family lives in a certain area. Currently, where I'm at, I was really happy where I was previously. I loved where I was. I loved the area. Loved the church.
Did.
And but honestly, the move to Coleman was a proximity thing, right? We had a 2-year-old, we had a second baby, on the way, and it was a move closer to grandparents. Now I love where I'm at, and I love what I do at Coleman, but it was absolutely a location conversation to begin with.
Ooh, I like that location conversation.
I agree with you, though. I told Julia the day that the Jackson Hole Church of Christ contacts me, there will be a for sale sign in the yard when you get home.
Is there a Church of Christ
there
in
is.
Jackson Hole? Okay.
I don't know if they'll be able to pay for you to be able to live in Jackson Hole, but that place is beautiful.
Yeah.
That was, where I'm at now. I kind of had it down to about 3 different places, and one of the things was, just the location. That was one of the things that we considered when we were making this decision to move here. And
what factors go into that besides just it's a pretty place to live? What other factors about this location drew you to Hartselle?
Man, when I interviewed here, and we were it was my first time to come to the church here. We stayed with my parents. They lived just right down the road. Actually, we stayed with my parents the week before, and then we stayed in a hotel the week that we came in and interviewed and everything. And when we went in to interview, there was like a group of guys that we met with, and then when Sunday came. Sunday after church, after the worship service, that was when we had our interview with the elders that I spoke about previously. But I have 2 small kids. I have 3 now, but at the time I had 2 small kids. And when we were walking into the doors, they told us kind of where to go. There's so many entrances here, 120 different doors.
There he is.
And so they said, you have to go to this door in this place and do this and do this. And so we got there. And as we're walking in, some of the parents didn't even acknowledge that I was there. And instead, were like down on their knees, like playing with my kids. And so that made a big difference in what I was doing. And I was like, and now actually after the interview, I told April, I was like, this is something that we have not considered because we have kids now and we're looking for a job. Because the previous job, I'd been there for 7 years, and so we had kids and we started our family, we did all that stuff. And the new place, I was like, we got to look at schools. We got to look at
it's a totally
classes.
Different conversation.
It's a whole different thing. And so when we came in, I'll shout out to Mark Reynolds. He's probably going to listen to this. But when I got there, he didn't even pay attention to me. Didn't even say, "Hey, glad you're here" or anything. He gives down on his knees. And my little daughter ran up to him and gave him a hug. Never seen him before in her life.
Which is a little concerning that she just hugs random men that don't know.
Well, it was because of the way.
Work on.
It was because of the way that he was there. He was on her level. He gave her a hug. He was asking her what kind of games they wanted to play, and what and that just to me was huge. And April said the same exact thing, and we were like, he said, well, we want to just kind of take you a tour on the building. The way that they had their classrooms set up was just awesome. They have like a movie room. They have a cafe room. They have all these like really cool rooms that are themed and set up to specific things about the stories that they're telling. And that was all stuff that I was like, my kids are going to get to grow up and go to these classes and get to be a part of this, and it's going to be really great. And that was a lot of the stuff. Then we had our worship service, and the preacher here is Justin Smith. He's probably going to listen to the episode. Shout out to Justin.
I love Justin.
Awesome dude. Great.
And you get to work with him
with.
every day.
It's the best. I mean, I'm being serious. I'm not just saying. Justin's awesome. It's so much fun to get to work with him. He does such a great job. I mean, phenomenal job.
What did he pay for the sponsorship of this episode?
We haven't discussed that yet, but no, he and so getting to work with Justin, knowing who he was, and we went to college together. We were friends in college. We weren't best friends or anything, but we were we were good friends in college. And then just all the things that the church offered. We had our worship service, and it was a great worship service. People came and introduced themselves because they thought I was just there visiting. Yeah. And they came and introduced themselves, and they were excited that I was there, excited to see a young family there, and all that stuff. And so
jokes on y'all, I'm staying.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, let me ask you this: in terms of kind of flying under the radar, visiting, have you ever visited a place before the interview, like you went as just a visitor to see what it was like, and no one knew who you were?
I've never done that. I've heard of people doing that though.
We did that with the Tullahoma, in Cedar Lane. When Jessica and I went up, we went for the weekend, stayed at Timms Ford State Park, and went and drove over to Cedar Lane and visited and just kind of checked it out as visitors. That they had no idea who we were, and we were interviewing like 2 weeks later. But just kind of getting a feel for the congregation without them knowing us.
Yeah, I've heard of people doing that, and that it's very effective. And
it gives you a good insight of what they're really like.
Yeah. I also, before I ever interviewed or anything, I looked at the website, and I looked at, sometimes the website can look really good but not be a good website. And then sometimes it can look really bad but have all of the things that are needed to be a good website. And so I got on and I looked at that, and I said, somebody knows what they're doing with the website. It looks good. Everything looks good. Kind of did my research. I talked to a lot of friends, and that's kind of what I was going to talk about next. Is what's the next step after you've said, I think this would be a good fit for me? You know, location looks good. You know, everything looks good. Website, I've checked it out. Then I'm going to ask my friends.
Yeah, and I think also this is, talking about the location before we move to the friends, depending on what stage of life, you just said, now I'm a dad, I got 3 kids, I'm considering these people love my family well.
Yeah.
If I'm a guy coming straight out of college and I'm looking for my first job, I might not care about that. I might be thinking, this would be a cool part of the country to live in, right? Or this would be a cool experience, or I want to live in a big city, or I want to live, I think there are different factors depending on what stage you're in when you begin your job search.
Go along with that too. It doesn't matter as much coming out of college, but it still does to make sure that church has people your age.
Yeah.
And even maybe find a church that you have some friends that you went to school with that live close.
Yep.
That way you completely aren't alone going into this work job itself. Something I looked for, and Decatur hit it perfectly, was longevity.
Yeah.
And I wasn't wanting to be one of the youth ministers that came in and worked everywhere for 2 years and had to keep moving. I wanted to find
exhausting.
somewhere to sit there and plant my roots and just live and have a life.
Yeah.
And that's what Decatur had. You had Philip Hines here at Hartselle. You have Chris. You have all these preachers that have been at these places for years.
And Mark Posey
had been there for a long time, and all the Beltlines ministers. And it was just this great place where all of these churches in the area bought into their ministers.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, all the other youth ministers in the area are fantastic. So it helped me stay. And of course, that was Michael's. Obviously, the straw that broke the camel was
That's right.
all the great youth ministers.
That's right. It had to be.
It was mainly just Eric Cheney. That was the reason I came.
Yeah.
Shout out Easy.
Yeah.
Jared.
So
I don't think Hunter. I don't think.
Let it go.
No.
Let it go. So I will say.
Shout out Eric. We love you.
I will say that.
No, we love you.
No, I love Eric.
when I took my first full-time position, it was straight out of college at Freed-Hardeman. I was coming out of. I mean, if you go to a Christian university, the experience of worship and community and camaraderie and Bible classes is so different than you're going to get anywhere after that, because you're going to go to church somewhere close to your school with 25 other college-age people, and you're going to have conversations in Bible class. It's going to be so fulfilling. And then I went to my first full-time job after graduation, and I knew a lot of people. I had good rapport with the families there. It was a busy job where I was at Hebron, but I was lonely. I went through this span, and not a lot of people, I don't think, realize this, because I could put on a good face, while in the congregational things. But I was kind of in a place of depression, I feel like, because that friends factor of where I took a job mattered. And I was lonely. I didn't have people my age. I didn't have community. And that got better, but I had to really lean into the area churches to find and develop that, because it wasn't present in that smaller, congregation where I started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're in that conversation with your spouse or whatever, be real with them and be honest with them, and make sure that that's something that we're both moving and we're both bought in and we're both going to do this. And there's going to be times where I'll just say, like, my wife does not like change. She does not like change at all. And so anytime that we've made a job change or we've moved houses or anything, it's a difficult thing. And I'm kind of on the opposite thing. I get excited about change, and so I can kind of, I don't know, disassociate myself and then be like, okay, we're going to do something new and it's going to be fun and we're going to, and so make sure that you have that conversation before you make this discussion or this change. Make sure that your wife understands, or your girlfriend or your fiance or whatever understands what ministry is about and what the job is before you actually take the job and everything. Make sure that that's communicated. That it's a very important thing to make sure that we have open communication with the person that we love most.
And I have a point for us to talk about in a little bit later about this, but most women didn't grow up imagining, I look forward to one day marrying in a ministry and living in a glass house.
Yeah.
They didn't plan on that, right? They loved you, and that ended up being the circumstance in which they married into. But let's talk about that. When you move to a congregation, or you're looking at a congregation, you're thinking about interviewing at this job, how much does it impact you to see how the women receive your wife in the interview process, or when we go to visit, how much does that matter in the conversation to you?
Oh man, that's like one of the most important things. I want to make sure that my wife is in a situation where it's healthy, where she's going to be able to grow and she's going to fit in. That goes into everything that I'm looking for in a church. that I didn't talk about that on the first time, but when my wife got there, they wanted to talk to just me for a little bit, and while that was happening, they found ways to get her to do stuff with their kids, and they kind of met with her and talked with her, and that was it went really well. But it's important, especially we were moving from where my wife's family is, where she's very comfortable, to a place that she's not comfortable, where her family is not here. And I wanted to make sure she had a good support group. And first off, Justin and his wife we were friends with them before, and so April having at least one person that she could talk with, discuss things with, was a really big plus in that search. So.
Yeah, and with Julia, she grew up at Beltline, so she's lived in this area her entire life. So already knowing a handful of the girls that were already attending Flint made it very easy for her. We're right down the road from her parents. Her parents still go to Beltline, and it's that makes it easy. And that was an easy take for the job itself too. But it's that we're really big into the young adult scene when we first got there. We really wanted to make sure that they had a good ladies set up, or they were actually doing things, and they're killing it right now, and she loves it. Yeah. She enjoys hanging out with young adults, and she enjoys hanging out with all the ladies together. They had a cookie swap this past Saturday, and they did a little ladies Christmas night 2 Mondays ago, and so she's getting involved with it, and she enjoys it.
So let's talk about the process with which you were hired to the places you're in. What did what tiers were there in their process? Is it just a phone call to start with? Is it a Zoom interview? Is it an in-person visit? How did yours look like? I know yours is different because you worked an internship for multiple summers. They knew you, and then the job was open for a full time, and you were able to take that. But Michael, some of your places that you've worked, what's that experience been like?
One of them was very, very terrible. It took 3 months for them to finally.
Sure.
I interviewed. I think there was 6 different interviews. I went and interviewed with these people. Then I interviewed with these people. Then I came in one weekend and did a thing with just the kids and their parents. And then I came in and did a thing. It was just miserable. And it was so long drawn out that I was just like, good grief! I don't know how much more I can do this. And so finally they offered me the job, and I was like, yes, now can we quit doing this interview process? I'm tired of doing it.
Just left in limbo.
It was so long, and they just wanted to make sure they were being thorough, which I get it. I understand, but man, that was miserable. A few other ones were, I had a phone interview or a phone discussion with somebody. We kind of talked over everything. And they said, yeah, we want to bring you in. We want to bring you in and have you teach a class and kind of see you with the kids and interacting with people and see how we would work together, get a good vibe of what your personality is and that thing. And that's kind of the normal, I think. Have a phone conversation, express that you're interested. They set up an interview, and then you come in and you do your interview and then talk with the elders, and that's kind of, they make that decision. But
one of mine. Go ahead.
I would say that's kind of how I had an interview, not in the interest of taking that job, just out of respect for that church, and that's kind of how that went. It was a phone call. Hey, are you interested? And I told them, I said, not really, but I'll take the interview and just hear you all out, things along those lines. And so I talked to them for a while, and then I had a Zoom call with the youth group search committee. Which was really cool. And so they sat there and they asked me questions and, what are they looking for in a youth minister? So I got to ask them some questions and what they're expecting. And then at the end, I told them, guys, I appreciate this. This is just more out of, my respect for y'all as a congregation. I said, but I'm not going to take the job. So then we got to have another conversation of, well, what should we look for? Yeah. What do we need to be looking for when we're making this search? What does that need to look like? And what can we change to make it easier for you at that end?
I think one of the things that, and I've been through this experience in an interview, congregations want to be thorough and they want to make sure that, this person G-hauls well with everybody. That's an old word.
That's a good word.
And they want to have this whole search committee, and I get it. And we've got if we're going to do a search committee, let's have 5 or 6 people. I've been to one where the search committee is 8 families. And so you've got husband and wife of both, all of those. And then they've got some elders and other ministers sprinkled in. And it's great. You meet a lot of people. But when you sit down in the room and there's 18 to 20 people looking at you going, what are you going to say next?
Yeah.
That's really intimidating. As an extroverted person, I did okay. My wife, who is a little bit more on the introverted side, that's a panic moment, right?
Yeah.
You've got all these people just staring at you, waiting for your response. Every little question. That's too much. Ended up taking the job. Loved the place. Was happy there. But that's a tough interview experience coming in, especially for someone young into it. So one of the things that I think I am very wary of, and I think probably you guys have had this experience too, but there's always this question about your wife's involvement.
Oh yeah.
And let me tell you, I understand the reason behind it is because at some point this congregation has been burned in some way, that they've had a youth minister whose wife hated that he was a youth minister and didn't want to be a part of it and was bitter every time he had to go on a trip or whatever. I get that. But the reality is you are not hiring my wife. You're hiring me. I'm here to interview for a job. She doesn't want to be the youth minister. She's going to be my wife, and she's going to support me and love me and help me where she can. But my job efficiency and effectiveness is not determined by whether or not my wife does tasks for the church in relation to my job. She very well may help with those, but it's not her job. Yeah. And you're not interviewing her. And I actually had an interview process where I said, there was a question that was asked. Something. I said, hey guys, I appreciate what you're asking, but I'm here to interview. My wife's not.
Yeah.
And so, and it ended up later getting a job offer on that one.
Yeah. And the thing is with that is, my wife loved, she loves it. She loves doing youth ministry. She loves, one of the downsides of having kids is that she doesn't get to be as involved as she wants to be, and she loves doing youth ministry stuff. She loves helping. She loves going on trips and events. Right. And she still goes on most of the trips and events, even, hauling 3 kids to everything because she wants to be able to help and do things. But that's all true, and that's all, absolutely 100% true, but that should not be the church's expectation.
And it's her volunteer role.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It's just like a parent volunteering, okay? This is her giving up her time because she loves God and she loves our kids and she loves the church and she's wanting to help. And so the expectation, you should not expect that, Michael's wife will be there because
and she'll teach the girls' class. And
she might love that, but she might not want to do that. And if she doesn't, she shouldn't be expected to. And that's part of it.
How did y'all see that transition? Because I'm assuming both of y'all started youth ministry before you had kids. And then you had your wife, and maybe your wife did show up to a lot of things. And then as y'all had kids, she just kind of not faded out, but now her priorities have switched. It's no longer the youth group or her kids. Yeah. Now she has kids, and now you're gone all the time, and now she's the one taking care of the home and making sure everything's taken care of. How did that transition for y'all?
It definitely makes things a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
It makes me not want to leave home as much.
Yeah. Sure.
I feel a lot of responsibility for being a good dad, and so you want to be a good dad, but you also have to work, and sometimes that means you have to be overnight and everything. But the way that we've kind of got it is that we say, if this is going to be beneficial for me and you and for our group, then we're going to come and she's going to bring the kids because she wants to. She wants to be a part of it. She wants to be involved. And so there's some events that she just says, we're just not going to be able to go. And I hate that. Like, I want to be there and I want to be a part of this. And I hate that we're not going to get to see you, Yeah. And then there's some where she says, hey, we're just going to drive up. At Maywood, we bought a Airbnb, and she stayed in the Airbnb, and she drove in every day.
Yeah. So the area wide retreat, she also drove in, didn't she, for the day?
Yeah.
So one of the things, and that's one of the ones I mentioned yesterday when we were talking about future shows, is the conversation of how do I do ministry while supporting my family? How do I engage my family with my ministry, or allow them to be separate from my ministry at times? And so I think we'll have some more in-depth conversation about that later. But
yeah.
One of the things that I kind of want us to think about is, okay, from the minister side of the perspective, we understand that, but for the church, it's kind of the question Hunter asked was, what do we need to be doing, right? The congregation that you'd talked with. Let's pretend for a second we're an eldership, okay? Bless the congregation that's dealing with that, but we're the eldership, baby.
Yeah,
we're in charge, and so now we're beginning this process.
Wait. Do you feel like you have a lot of power right now? Because I do.
Who's the chief elder?
I am.
Don't say it.
It's me.
No, you can't admit that.
It's me, 100%.
Every youth minister knows who the chief elder is. So we're beginning the process. How does that look? Where do we start that? How do we even decide, hey, we need to hire someone for this position, right? What does that look like for us?
Man, I'm just going to say every church needs a youth minister, period. And
whether paid or volunteer, they need somebody.
They need to have
somebody heading up the youth ministry.
Kids, it's obvious when something's not going very well at a church as far as youth ministry goes. There needs to be change. There needs to be something happen. It's an obvious thing. And you start seeing numbers decline. You start hearing parents talking. You start seeing things that shouldn't be happening. But the biggest thing, in my opinion, is when they graduate, they don't come back.
Yeah.
That's where I see the biggest, that's the one that hits me in the chest, and it's like, something's got to change. Something needs to be done here, because we just graduated 12 students, and one of those kids he's the only person that still goes to church. The rest of them don't. Yeah. And recognizing that as an eldership and saying, we've got to do something different. That's where that conversation begins, in my opinion. I think that's the most important thing is we are losing our kids. Just
honesty about where things are moving. Yeah,
we're hemorrhaging our members. That's what's happening here.
And it's the eldership having humility.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that is on them too.
Yeah.
We are losing those members, and we are the shepherds of this congregation, and it's up to us to figure out, what do we need to do next? Do we need to find a part-time parent, or do we need to find someone coming out of college? Do we need to get somebody a little bit older? And a lot of that too is the financials of the church, the size of the church.
Right.
What can you afford as far as a youth minister goes? If you're a smaller church, you might be able to afford a full-time youth minister straight out of college, but they're not going to stay forever. And
right.
you have to know that expectation as well.
It would be great if they did,
yeah.
But when you're only able to pay $40,000, $35,000, whatever a year, you have to expect, hey, this person's probably not going to be here for a very long time, because when they start having a family, they're just not going to be able to support them. And so finding out those ways, like what you're talking about, that what do the financials look like? How much are we going to be able to pay? That's definitely one of the things that we as an eldership, me, you, and Hunter, need to consider is, where are we willing to pay? What's our budget look like? And what kind of youth minister are we wanting to get? So I think Jeremy should talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So when you say what kind, are we talking personality, style?
Everything.
Old, young,
age.
Straight out of college, no college?
I mean, that is a conversation. So are we looking for someone that has a personality that leads in a specific way? For an example of that, a lot of times I see, let's say that they have had a previous youth minister, or we have as an eldership.
That's right.
And we're looking to hire someone again. Did the previous guy do well? Did he do well in certain areas? For most churches that have had a previous youth minister, whatever he was not good at is what the next guy is going to be incredible at.
That's right.
Whether that's right or wrong, it's just the way. It's the way that it goes. It's the same way we elect presidents, right?
They will overcorrect.
That is extremely accurate, though.
Yeah. They will. They will hire someone. If your previous guy was disorganized and irresponsible, the next guy is going to be annoyingly organized to the point that he struggles being spontaneous, right? Yeah. Because they are so scared of getting that guy again.
To talk a little bit on that, there was a church that I worked with, and they said, here's been our history of youth ministers. They said we had one. He never turned in receipts. He never did anything. He never had anything prepared. It was a last second thing. It was a last second thing with everything. He didn't. He would, and they kind of explained it. And they said, so then we hired this guy, and everything was on time. Everything, he turned in all of his receipts. He had documents and things that were doing this. And he said, but then whenever you get to his Bible class was very much like that. It was, here's what we're going to do, and we're not going to stray off of this, and we're not going to have discussion. It's going to be, we're going to read this Bible to each other, and we're going to, and then the kids were like, well, we just want to kind of hang out. And he's like, no, there's no time for hanging out. We got to do a Bible study, And they're like, we don't even know each other, and so that didn't work out. He ended up leaving and going, and he actually became a preacher, and he's doing a great job, just a great job. And then they hired me, and they were like, so which one are you? And I was like,
sounds like you don't like either one.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be somebody just completely new. I'm not going to be like him, and I'm not going to be like him. I'm going to be somebody completely different. And so,
and that's what the eldership has to understand too. Everyone is different. If us three is this eldership, if we've had someone in the past, we know what they did. We know what we liked and didn't like, but that next person could be completely different. And like kind of what you said earlier, they could, we're not going to say lie. They could fib when we ask them questions.
Yeah.
Are you organized? Oh yeah, man, I'm super organized. And they've never turned in a receipt their entire life.
Yeah.
Just anything along those lines. And we could be duped in that situation too. So one, honesty goes a long way from the youth ministry side. And two, the eldership should understand what they're looking for and have a realistic expectation of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And just making sure that we as a church are making the best decision in the hiring process. Us as eldership making the best decision for the church. Whether it's somebody with a family, and the way that I look at it, and I could be a little biased here, but the way that I look at it is you want to have somebody who's matured, who knows what it's like to have a family. If you can afford it and you can make this move, you need to have someone who's got experience, they're ready to just put down roots and invest into a community, be a part of something, and not just be a member, but be an active member who is actually going to plug in and be a part of the church there.
I'll say this, and this is not good news for the guys that are currently, trying to get their youth ministry degree and all that. If I'm an elder right now, I'm not looking for a 22-year-old, and that sounds bad, or if I am, I'm looking for one that has some experience and wisdom with some specific things. Personally, I think that there is such a mental health challenge going on with teenagers right now, with just depression, anxiety, all this kind of stuff. I would, for the things that we all three deal with on a day-to-day basis with our current students, I would be scared to trust a 21, 22-year-old to deal with some of the things that I feel like you need somebody that's in their late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, that's gone through some life experience to understand how to love and relate to a child that's going through some major mental health issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go along with that too, I think there needs to be realistic expectations for both the youth minister and the eldership.
Yes.
And here's what I mean by that. And this is a pet peeve of mine, and people can disagree with me, and that's okay. I dislike the churches that are 150 members or so. No, nothing against small churches, but they're looking for a youth minister, but that youth minister has to be married, had gone to a Christian college, have 4 years of experience, and they're only going to make $45,000 a year.
Right.
That's not a realistic
His
expectation.
experience doesn't equal your offering.
No, and it's just, that's not a realistic expectation. But at the same time, from a youth minister's perspective, coming out of college, you can't have that expectation of you're getting the job.
Yeah.
You're going to the biggest church in your town, 600 members, you're making, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, and you're going to have to find a smaller job first.
Right.
And you can go from there. And you can make it to where you want to be, I guess you could say. Per se, I'm more saying like location-wise. Yeah. If you're wanting to be in the Decatur area, then and you can't just start off in the Decatur area. You might have to go somewhere else. And then once the job opens, you can kind of step into this area.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's go on into the interview process. Like you're standing in front of an eldership. You're looking for a job, whatever the circumstance is, you're looking for a job, you're trying to interview. What are the things that go through your mind while you're doing this process? And I always say the person who talks the most during an interview is the person who thinks it went well. Okay.
That's true.
And so if you're the person that's just talking the whole time, you're going to leave there thinking, man, I killed it. That was awesome. That was so good. While the eldership could be over there being like, good grief, that kid would not shut up.
His sermons will not be 20 minutes.
We were trying our best to ask him a question. He wouldn't even let us talk, and so going into it, and then again, when they ask you a few questions and they talk a lot, and then you kind of are barely able to get in, you just don't feel like it went really well. And so finding ways to get them to talk, to get the church to answer some of these questions. Don't be afraid to ask them questions, because you're about to devote at bare minimum 2 years of your life to this church, and that's the way you should go in, is saying, I'm going to, even if I don't know if this is the best place for them, I'm going to give them 2 years, and we'll, but still you're saying 2 years, no matter what, this is what, I'm going to be.
And it's not just a job.
Right.
I hope that what we're getting across in this podcast is that this is more than getting a paycheck. You're about to carry the responsibility of ministering to the heart of teenagers.
Yeah.
And you need to take that serious in the process, right? You need to recognize this needs to be somewhere that I can be effective for the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
Well, and they're seeing if you're the right fit for their congregation, and at the same time, you're also trying to see if this congregation is the right fit for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see yourself working here for a long time? I don't think it does the kids any good if you're just going everywhere for 2 years and leaving.
Yeah.
There needs to be some consistency in their lives as well.
Yeah.
Can you see yourself staying there maybe not long term, but can you see yourself staying there 5, 6, 7, 8 years?
Yeah.
And seeing what that looks like. See what the eldership's like. Find that head elder, or would you say chief?
The chief elder.
The chief elder. Find that chief elder and see if you can get along with them.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have chief elders.
But we do.
Sometimes we do. Yeah.
Sometimes. Not at our congregations, obviously.
One of the things that we've talked about, and we at Freed Hardeman, actually, it was with Chuck Morris, not Chuck Norris, but Chuck Morris.
What if he did youth ministry?
Oh, he'd
Both-
do this.
we wouldn't have a
equally
job.
as cool.
There would
though.
be so many more broken jaws.
Yeah, but you know what? Most of the guys we know would get fired because he could do that from home and affect all of the ministries.
That's true. You're right. But anyways, Chuck Morris, he taught me this thing when he said, when you're interviewing, there's this really good little, I don't know what it's called, but it's called SWOT. SWOT.
You said I don't know what it's called, but it's called.
Well, I mean, like, what is it called? What's the thing? The
acronym.
Acronym? Is it an acronym?
There it is.
Yeah.
So it's an acronym, and it's SWOT. SWOT.
Words
Okay.
are tough.
That's not how you spell SWAT, but that's a good way to remember it. And that is this is something I've always, every church that I've interviewed, I've asked this. I might not have said exactly these words, but definitely I've
These
asked
4
this.
things.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay. So you ask, as a church, what is y'all's strength? And I'll just tell you, you sit there for about 30 seconds in silence because they haven't thought about that
That's
yet.
why they're hiring you. They don't have any in their minds.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so they'll say, well, I don't. Our kids love to sing. Our kids really love to sing. Our church loves to sing.
Which is a great strength.
And so, they'll be talking about that kind of stuff. And they discuss that. And then you say, well, what are your weaknesses? And you never want to talk about weaknesses. But if anybody in the church knows what the weaknesses is, the elders do. And sometimes they are very open. And they'll say, hey, we went through a huge deal. And this is what happened. And we're still kind of going through it. And but asking for those questions, because you've got to figure out what the church is like that you're applying to work for.
Yeah.
My favorite question is about the opportunities. What kind of opportunities do y'all offer? When I interviewed for the church in Arkansas, I said, what kind of opportunities? They said, this is a growing community. We have, lots of opportunities, lots of possibilities, lots of cool stuff that we could do. And I killed it over there. I did a bunch of really cool stuff. I was able to start a bunch of ministries that were there, and we did some really, really good things over there because of the different opportunities. And then the last one is threats. And that is, if the eldership is bashing the old youth minister to you, and they're saying, well, this guy did all this, and he was terrible, and he did this, that's probably a threat. It's, hey, this eldership does not respect youth ministers. There's a chance that the youth minister was just that bad, but more than likely they just don't respect the position.
Yeah. So you've got those kind of questions. What are some specific questions that you personally need to find out when you go into the interview and you say, hey, what will this experience be like?
The first question I would probably ask are maybe what are my expectations? And obviously I know I'm a youth minister, but what does that entail? Does that entail me 6th through 12th grade? Is that from newborn to 12th grade? Is that, you're doing this, but you're also washing the bus and X, Y, and Z?
Filling the baptistry?
Yeah, really, what is that job title? And give me a job description behind this and make sure they have a job description for you.
Yeah.
Because eventually, especially young ministers, you're going to get busy. You're going to eventually get married, you're going to have kids, and life's going to get busy on you. And eventually you have to look at your job description and say, hey, the things you're telling me to do is not my job description.
Yeah.
I need more time at home. I need, X, Y, and Z, whatever that might be. So maybe have that clear communication of what is expected from me and how do you expect me to do that?
Yeah. One of the things that I did when I was hired for this job, that question was what was on my mind. That's what the expectation question.
Yeah.
And I said, what is the expectation with lads leaders? We've talked about, I love lads leaders. I'm all for it. I will help with it. I will serve whatever I can do to help, all of that stuff. I love it. I'm a big fan. Okay. But I will not be the person in charge. And I've told that every time I interview, that's one of my things. Because there was one time I was thrown into that situation by a church. They said, this is what we want you to do. You're a youth minister. You're going to do this. And I said, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm going to do my best. But I have been doing a full-time job before this, and now I've got all this extra responsibility with no pay for it. I'm just going to have to put in extra hours to fix this and do this. And then when I did it, I did all the things. I did my tail off to get all that done, to do everything. And then after it was over with, they were like, you just did terrible. And I was like, I busted it to get this done, and you gave me 2 months to prepare for it. And so I just say, that's just not something I'm going to do. I'm not going to do it. And so when I interviewed here, I told them that, and they said, do you not like Laz Leaders? And I was like, no, I love it. I'm all for it. I love it. I'll help. I'll do whatever I need to do. You just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. I'm not going to be the person in charge. Yeah. And so making sure that those expectations are clear and that they know this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm not willing to do.
And that doesn't mean to get a job you don't be the I mean, there absolutely may be a place that you need to go and be that guy that runs Laz Leaders.
Yeah.
But knowing yourself, your personality, knowing what your skill set is for that, communicating up front. The question that I'm going to ask in an interview process is going to be, what does, because here's the thing, we're hiring in as professionals, and anybody else that's hiring for a job, they are going to ask these kind of questions. And just because you're going into ministry doesn't mean that you shouldn't carry it like a professional position. I'm going to ask, hey, what's the reality of the pay scale, and what does evaluation and raises look like?
Yeah.
In the years to come, if I'm doing a good job here, will I be compensated? Will my family be taken care of in that way if things are going well here? And if things are not going well, will I find that out before you're ready to fire me, right? Will I have some communication about, hey, this could have been better. I will say, I don't know that I want it as extensive as my previous one was, but they were really good at this side of things. Every October, November-ish time when they would begin, all the budget process and all that, every year, all of the ministers on staff would go through evaluation. And so all of my youth ministry elders, the ones that were specific with youth ministry, they would write a review of my work for the year. All of my youth deacons would do a review of my work for the year. They would select at random a couple of families, parents, to review my work, and then I would have to do a self-evaluation of my work for the year. I hated the self-evaluation because I was always super critical, because it's just the way it goes. But then I got back together with those elders that worked with youth ministry, and we had a deep conversation about, hey, did it go well this year? Did it not go well this year? What are we going to improve for next year? And it wasn't hey, we're ready to fire you because you didn't do good in this event or this job or whatever. It's hey, we're analyzing this to make it better for the coming year because we want to invest in you long term.
Right.
And I would ask that up front in an interview now. I didn't do that early as I was younger, but now with the wisdom of having been through some things, I would just straight up say, hey, can I expect to see X amount raise? Is there going to be a raise with inflation? As we see right now, I mean, it's outrageous to buy groceries. Our health insurance is going up this year substantially. There's, our insurance on our mortgage on our home, all of that, everything is going to go up. Can I expect to see those kind of things change with my pay if things are going well? Obviously, if I'm doing a bad job, I don't deserve to keep getting raises. But if I'm doing a good job, can I expect that to improve?
Yeah. And that's something, when I got hired here, that was one of the questions I asked for sure.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that you're able to take care of your family. That's the big thing.
You're the advocate for your family's financial well-being.
Yes.
You're the one that walks in and you're arguing for your financial health.
Yeah.
This is going to sound silly. I also ask about vacation.
Yeah.
What does that vacation look like? I'm big into the outdoors, hunting and things like that. And I want to know, can I take my week off to go out to the woods and hunt, or am I going to have to, break it up into different things? Am I going to be able to go on a family vacation and things along those lines? And on top of that, it's, what day am I going to get off? Do I get off a day during the week?
Yeah.
I think it's very important for us, all ministers, to be able to step away from ministry as a whole and just focus on you.
Yeah.
Have a good, just a self day where you can do the thing. Yeah.
It's
that you
like
can do the
biblical
things that you enjoy to do, and you can just breathe.
Yeah.
And I think with the mental health we talked about earlier, I think that really helps on that side.
Yeah. It's almost like God knew what he was doing when he made the Sabbath.
It's crazy.
Oh, man.
Crazy.
One of the things I do want us to highlight before we wrap this up is Steve, my coworker Coleman, Steve has a friend that works on the staff of Lipscomb University in Nashville, and they, had a conversation about how difficult it is to hire a minister right now, and to find and hire either a pulpit minister or children's minister or youth minister, worship minister, whatever you're hiring. It's hard to find, and he said that they're having way less students pursue degrees in ministry. You're seeing that at Heritage, you're seeing it at Freed-Hardeman, you're seeing it at Faulkner and Heritage. And Harding, sorry, I think I said Heritage. Yeah. But you're seeing this across the board, in our area, that there's not many going into it. And he said, why do you think that is? And this guy told Steve, he said, it's elderships negatively dealing with ministers or dealing with them in a way that causes them to want to leave ministry. And they're hearing about that, and there's families, raising their kids to say, don't go into ministry. We have families, that a kid has a passion for ministry and they seem like they have the skill set for that. But parents are like, well, you're never going to make money in that. You should go be a doctor. You should go be a lawyer. You should go be a
real estate agent.
You should go be a real job, because that's not going to make enough money for your family.
Right.
And we're discouraging people from ministry, and congregations and elderships, the way they've belittled and dealt with youth ministers or preachers has discouraged ministry pursuing. And so it's really getting hard to find good hires.
Yeah.
And for our last couple of hires, we've really struggled to get good applicants. We've ended up getting lucky and hiring some really good people, but it wasn't because we had a big stack of resumes to look through. We just happened to get that one good person out of a small stack.
When it's changed, I mean, like I said earlier, or maybe on another podcast, youth ministers aren't looking for that 2 years anymore.
No.
Right. We're looking for longevity.
Yeah.
And we're finding these places that we're happy with, and when jobs come open, you're not even looking at them.
Yeah. Yep. I know that's kind of the new trend has been like headhunting.
Yeah.
Go get who you want.
This guy is a guy that we know is doing a good job. He's doing a good job at this church. He's just, everything's going really well. I wonder if we can offer him a little bit more money and he'll come over here.
You're going to have to pay him to get him away from the churches they're at now.
Yeah.
And ministers talk, and I think elders need to understand that too. Ministers talk. If you're, treating your minister poorly, they're going to realize that they're getting treated poorly.
Oh yeah,
and they're going to start talking to their friends, and all of a sudden they're going to want some change.
There's been times where I've interviewed at churches or talked with churches, and then I go ask my friends, and they say, "You don't need to work there. It's not a good place." And there was one time I still worked there, and they were right. It was not a good place to be.
Should have listened to my friends.
Yeah,
man.
and so, but the last thing I wanted to say is what we mentioned at kind of close to the beginning was talk to your friends, your youth ministry buddies, your preacher buddies, and discuss things with them. The final thing that made me move to Hartselle, where I work now, was talking to a very, very close friend, very good friend, Barry Binion, who he had worked here previously. And he just said, Michael, this is going to be a great place for you to be. And knowing that coming from him, and knowing how much he means and how much his word means to me, that was kind of the final thing that said, this is where we want to be. And so making sure that you talk to your friends. I don't know how many times I talked to Jeremy about moving here and the different positives and the negatives, and discussing things through everything. And then when I got here, I got to meet Hunter, and I had met him before, but we knew
of each other before.
Yeah, we really got to be good friends after I moved here and everything. So just knowing that kind of stuff, and doing and asking those questions, and having that good friends that you can trust, and you know that they're going to lead you in the right way. There's a lesson in 2 Chronicles chapter 9 with Jeroboam and Rehoboam that this kind of goes through every time I go to an interview process. I think about, Rehoboam was given this opportunity to be graceful and let Jeroboam come back in and stop all of this hard work that they're doing. And Jeroboam comes in, he says, if you'll just kind of loosen the load a little bit, we'll serve you forever, Rehoboam. And Rehoboam asks his advisors, and his advisors say, you should go easy on them. They're not lying to you. This is a great opportunity for you. This could be a kingdom-defining change here. And so he didn't like what they said, so he went and asked some other people that weren't so reliable, and they said, no, you need to make things way worse for them. They're not going to help you. And so what does Rehoboam do? He does that, and it splits the nation. Judah is formed, and Israel is just led into happen. Everything just goes to nothing. And it's all because of that one decision where he didn't listen to the wise people in his life and didn't even consider what they said, and went with what he wanted to do in retribution, basically, to avenge what was going on with his dad and the people that ask for a little bit of grace. So keeping that in mind in this interview process, it's a big deal. This could really
Wise counsel.
Yeah, this could really cause some good choices and some bad choices. And so make sure that you're willing to put in the time, the effort, the energy, work hard. People are going to recognize when you work hard, and that goes a long way. You might mess up a bunch of times, but they're saying, man, he does it 110% every time, and that goes a long way. So y'all have anything else you want to discuss before we close out?
I'm good, man. I think it was good.
All right. Well, make sure to go. That's a wrap. Make sure to go to OkayestYouthMinistry.com and check out our website. Look at some of the resources that we have on there. We'll probably have a couple more. We've got some book things
book
that we're
recommendations
that we're gonna put on the website, and we'll probably put it on social media too. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and make sure to tune in and like and subscribe the show, and then. Also, make sure that you are reviewing our show and giving us the however many stars or whatever, because that does go a long way in its suggested podcasts. So make sure you're doing that so we can get a bigger audience. But we really appreciate what you're doing. We're praying for you. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, whatever it is.
Whenever this comes out.
Whenever this comes out, we're grateful for you. We're thankful for you. And we hope that your youth ministry is blessed.
Thanks for joining us today in the important conversation of youth ministry. Go and follow us on Instagram and check out OkayestYouthMinistry.com for more information about our upcoming episodes. We'll be dropping a new episode every Wednesday morning, and we look forward to talking with you again next week. And hey, it's okay to be the okayest youth minister around, but let's all strive to be just a little bit better.